The Buckeyes say they are ready. We'll find out for certain on a Saturday as we welcome in Tony Gerdeman from BuckeyeHuddle.com. Gerd, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, Mark. Looking forward to it.
Let's talk about Ohio State and Michigan, although it's pretty much what we've been discussing on the back burner the entire season. I don't think we're going to see any surprises come Saturday.
No, just like the coaches and players talk about how it's always in the back of your mind all year long, it seems like that's the same place it is for us as well. And now it's here, and I guess with so much focus on it, it would kind of be hard to surprise anybody at this point because you've seen so much of everything. Obviously, we don't know what the outcome is going to be, but when it happens, it will probably make sense.
Let's talk about the Ohio State running back situation. As Travion Henderson, we saw him in a walking boot in the second half against Maryland, but Ryan Day said he was on a pitch count. Mayan Williams did not play against Maryland. In their stead, Dallin Hayden, the Big Ten freshman of the week, after scoring 3 touchdowns and 140-some yards rushing. Did Dallin Hayden show you enough in the second half against Maryland to get the start against Michigan?
He showed me enough that if he gets to start, he can be capable, and that it wouldn't be some sort of thing where, oh no, Ohio State has no chance. He showed me, even when Travion Henderson went down in the first half there, you felt like this, Dallin Hayden is the kind of changeup that is going to help. And I'm sure we all said the same thing about the Iowa or the Northwestern game. Get Dallin Hayden in there, change some things up. And that's what he does. And he did an excellent job in that game. And I think he is a guy that can also do some things against Michigan because he gets to the hole, he uses the hole. And sometimes that's half the battle with Travion Henderson. And, Mayan Williams, his health, I think it's better than it was last week. I expect him to play. But as Brian Day was asked, if you've got a 100% Dallin Hayden and an 80 to 85% Mayan Williams or an 80 to 85% Travion Henderson, do you go with the 100% Dallin Hayden? And Day said that's a conversation they're going to have. And he's done so well to this point. He's protected the ball, which is the thing that Ryan Day says is the most important thing. So as he's protecting that ball, he's also moving the chains. He's keeping them on schedule. And that's something that Travion Henderson didn't do in the first half last week, because when you lose 2 yards on first down or you don't gain any yards on first down, as opposed to Dallin Hayden getting 4 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards, that's the guy that you can continue to move the chains with, and they did that.
I thought another telling comment from Ryan Day on Tuesday was he said several of the offensive linemen graded as champions, and in the second half he thought the running backs did a better job of getting to the holes. Well, the only really running back playing the second half was Dallin Hayden.
Yeah, and I think he had over 20 carries in that half, and they really relied upon him. And this is a team with a lot of veteran players at this point, and they rode a freshman to victory. And so that's something in a tough environment, backs against the wall, loss is on the line, win is on the line, like anything is able to happen. And he didn't let that become too much. And he was a guy that they relied on. And the blocks were better. The running back using the blocks makes them better, I think, as well. But he's a guy right now that just does what the offense is designed to do. And that makes everybody look better. That makes everybody look like they know what they're doing. And he's not necessarily looking for a 40-yard run. If it's there, good luck to him. He might hit it. But if they can just get 5 or 6 yards, especially this week against Michigan, if they can just stay on time, on target, ahead of schedule, or just on schedule. It's once you get behind schedule and Michigan knows that you're going to throw the ball where things get iffy. If you can run or throw at any point, that Michigan pass rush is much less disruptive.
We have both followed this game our entire lives. We've both covered this game for 15, 20 years at this point. So it's no surprise to either one of us that we saw both Ohio State and Michigan come out a little flat the week before the game. Do you put much stock into the performance against Maryland? Do you put much stock in what Michigan did against Illinois?
Well, I mean, I think what we know is there is no perfect team in college football this year. And you can go from Georgia to Alabama to USC. We've all seen rough games. And so this is one of those. And you could say the same thing for just about every national championship team or any Big Ten championship team. You look back on the course of their season, and there are games like last week. So I don't know if you can make too much of them, other than Ohio State and Michigan are flawed. And we didn't need those 2 weeks to show us that. And so we kind of knew that going in. But also, Ohio State isn't necessarily going to see an offense or defense like Maryland against Michigan. And Michigan is not going to see an offense or defense like Illinois against Ohio State. So, the transitive nature or whatever you want to throw in there is probably not much carryover or crossover, but it does go to show that both teams have their foibles. And if the other team can take advantage of them and stay healthy doing it, then they've got a pretty good shot.
It certainly seemed as if Maryland was effective hurting Ohio State when Maryland had the ball, using some change of direction, some misdirection. That's not what Michigan is equipped to do. Michigan's going to line up, it's going to hit you and go straight forward. Is the Ohio State defensive line prepared for a Michigan offensive line that bullied them around in Ann Arbor a year ago? And it appears as if this Michigan offensive line is actually a better than they were a year ago.
Yeah, I guess that's one of the two big questions: is the Michigan offensive line against the Ohio State defensive line. And this is a defensive line that has heard how soft they are, and how they were bullied and how they were pushed around. And so they'll have something to prove, obviously. And, the change of direction, like Michigan's change of direction, is basically Blake Corum changing direction, or the play action bootlegs to a tight end. It takes some time. And it's something that Ohio State has handled kind of well this season, where they will have a guy that just keys on that quarterback on that bootleg. But I think they also need to, they're going to, with the pass rush, they're going to come so fast upfield that they can't lose contain. And that's something that has hurt them this year. And that's something that JJ McCarthy does very well. So they're going to have to, not be cautious, but beware on stuff like that. And this is a defensive line that maybe the interior has not gotten as much attention as they probably should. And that might be where everything is decided on the inside with the defensive tackles.
Ohio State is considered the favorite on Saturday. If this game was played at a neutral site, who knows what the line would be. But I think the thought is, with this game being in Columbus, that gives the Buckeyes an advantage. J.J. McCarthy, sophomore quarterback for Michigan, he has never played in Columbus. The vast majority of Wolverines have never played in Columbus, because after all, the last time they were scheduled to play, 2020, that game wiped out because Michigan did not have enough players eligible because of COVID. 2018 was the last time Michigan played in Columbus. 2000 was the last time Michigan won in Columbus. Is the shoe going to be the big difference on Saturday?
This is going to be an environment that you would hope, given the length of time that it's been since 2018, that it would be one of the best, if not the best, environment in Ohio State football history. Now, I think we also know that the weather will have something to do with that. If it's raining, that's going to drown some people out. But to go 4 years between seeing Michigan in your stadium, if you're not fired up for that, if that does not make you want to be part of the outcome, then give your tickets to somebody else at this point. This is an opportunity for Ohio State to really have a home field advantage, to make the most of it. You talked about all of some of the Michigan players that have never experienced this. Like this year, they've played at Iowa, and I believe I heard somebody say, when we were there, when we were in Ann Arbor, somebody asked a question about, well, you've played in Iowa, you've played in Rutgers. This has prepared you for Ohio State. And if that has prepared them for Ohio State, then blame the Buckeye fans for not being loud enough in that game. But there are so many Buckeyes who haven't played in this game in Ohio Stadium as well. And so this is going to be a big day for a lot of people, and it's going to be a new scene for almost everybody.
Yeah, Michigan's road games this year: Iowa, Indiana, and Rutgers. With all due respect to Iowa, none of those hold a candle to Ohio State. You brought up the W word, weather. There are plenty of amateur meteorologists in Ann Arbor and Columbus and everywhere in between, anxiously watching the forecast. On your social media accounts, you have called it the Panda Watch 2022. What can you tell us about what we can expect from the weather and how that might affect the game?
Well, I don't want to break down the fourth wall or pull the curtain, but you can. And I've done this each day. You can go to 4 different websites and get 4 slightly different forecasts. So whichever forecast you want to tweet that day, you can pretty much go ahead and do it. But now it's starting to look a little bit more and more like some rain, and temperatures in the low 50s. I got my dual Doppler out back, and it'll tell me more later on. But I think if this is a wet track, and we've seen Ohio State play in that through the course of this year, and when they do, they've gone ahead and held some guys out with minor lower leg injuries and stuff because that kind of surface isn't that good for them, which would make you think that it would also not be good for Blake Corum. It would also not be good for Donovan Edwards and players of that nature. So I know Buckeye fans want to see perfect weather, but I don't know how much a little bit of rain hurts them.
It'll be the final game at Ohio Stadium for the Buckeye seniors and maybe some juniors. We found out on Tuesday that Ronnie Hickman, despite having 2 years of eligibility remaining, he does intend to head to the NFL, so he'll be participating in Senior Day festivities. Earlier in the week, Ryan Day breaking with tradition, saying they will not do senior tackle prior to the Michigan game. I think John Cooper tried to do that. Didn't work out so well for John Cooper. I guess we'll find out Saturday if it works out for Ryan Day not having senior tackle before the game.
Yeah, I guess the best time to change up some traditions is after a loss, because if you do it on like a 10-game winning streak, then you have caused something bad if you lose. So I think the best time to do it is when there's nothing riding on you wearing that particular pair of socks or that particular tie or having senior tackle day be this day. And so yeah, he did say that that's the only the tradition he has changed. It was just too much of a rush last year, he said, and so they're gonna save it for later on down the road. But yeah, I think if they lose, nobody will think that it's because of senior tackle. They'll just continue to say it was because the line of scrimmage, which is probably the more accurate of the two blames there.
Is that the key to the game, in your opinion? Who wins that line of scrimmage, whether it's Ohio State on the ball or Michigan on the ball?
Yeah, I think so. And then making plays, and coaches will say don't turn it over. But I keep saying if CJ Stroud gets time to throw, Ohio State doesn't have to run the ball as well as Michigan, which is a change because generally whoever averages more yards per carry in this game wins. I don't know that Ohio State has to average more yards per carry if DeJuan Jones and Paris Johnson can protect CJ Stroud and allow him to throw the ball.
It is the fourth time Ohio State and Michigan have met as unbeaten and untied in those previous 3 meetings. Ohio State 2 victories, no losses, and 1 tie. We know there will not be a tie on Saturday. We'll find out if Michigan gets their first win in that situation or Ohio State gets their third. I want to thank our guest tonight here on College Ball Weekly, Tony Gerdeman from BuckeyeHuddle.com. Thank you, Gerd.
Thanks, Mark.